You're a conservative, you're worried about woke politics. Well, Vladimir Putin has got a message for you. He's your man, especially if you're American. The Russian president told his army a year ago on Friday to capture Ukraine, but it's been smashed. And last night, Putin gave a speech where the most interesting bit was pitching it at America's right wing, telling them he's going to save them. Here he is.
Посмотрите, что они делают.
See what they do with their own peoples. The destruction of the family, cultural and national identity. Perversion and mockery of children and pedophilia are declared the norm of their life. And priests are forced to bless same-sex marriages. As it became known, the Anglican Church, for example, plans to consider the idea of a gender-neutral God.
What a joke. Putin, the defender of civilization, a man so corrupt he built himself a palace on the Black Sea, so murderous that he has his critics killed and poisoned, and so evil that he's invaded Ukraine now, killing thousands of civilians, and so surrounded by evil, really. Joining me from Miami is filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, thank you so much for your time. Vladimir Putin seems to have aimed his speech on the war, not just at Russians wondering if it's been a terrible mistake, but at the American right wing, saying he's on their side, is he?
Yeah, look, and it's a calculated and frankly very smart move on his part, because he'll speak to people like me and say, yeah, I don't agree I don't disagree with any of those things. And what he's trying to do in a very shrewd way is he understands the political electorate and where we are in Ukraine. The Republican Party is split 50-50 on this thing, and he knows there's a very vocal group of people on the right side of the aisle who are opposing more money going to Ukraine. So he is trying to exploit that. Now, he has that in common with somebody else. You know who else is trying to exploit that divide? Joe Biden. If you ask why did Joe Biden go to Ukraine, it's because he knew that it would piss off a certain segment of the Republican electorate and it was a wedge move where he now has Republicans at each other's throats on this issue, and he knew that it would do that. And from both of those men, it was a particularly shrewd move, to be honest. It was a terrible thing of him to go, in the sense that why is he not in East Palestine? Why is he not in the border? Why is he not in my coffee shop? I think it's more appropriate for him to be in my coffee shop. But he's not there. He went to Ukraine, even though we have all these issues here in the U.S., and he went there because he knew it would be a wedge issue for the Republican Party, and he was right.
Yeah, but what I don't get, Ami, is like, I can understand, people saying, yes, America is disrespecting its culture. We see the same thing here, by the way. But why would you think that Vladimir Putin is therefore the guy to barrack for in this case? This guy is so corrupt. His army can't fight because his generals are so corrupt that a lot of the weapons and the equipment and everything hasn't got to the front. And, he's got cheering him on the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, who's a billionaire, right, who's been in the cigarette trade, who's known as to be a former a spy for the Russian spy agency, and has worn a $30,000 watch. I mean, why would you think that, oh, right, Putin's right, here's our man?
Yeah, no. Obviously, the vast majority of Republicans and conservatives will not look at him as their guy. But what he is doing is they're saying, well, this is from Putin's perspective. From Putin's perspective, look, you have to understand the situation he's in. He is desperate. He is grasping for straws. His army has been degraded to almost nothing. He's been exposed as a true paper tiger. And he has to make a move. And this is the move. The move was, look, if I speak to the cultural issues, the cultural values that animate people on the right, I might be able to exploit enough of them. I might be able to get enough of them to say, why are we spending money to engage a war on somebody who maybe even shares our values? I think that's what the move is. I think I understand why he's doing it. He may even be able to get a very small percentage of Republicans to agree with that. But he is speaking to the larger issue, which is the split in the Republican Party on the Ukraine issue. One that you and I both support. We both think this was look, we spent $20 billion. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but ultimately, $20 billion in the scheme of the trillions that we spend every year is peanuts. And it was I have to say, for what we accomplished, which is exposing Russia, basically taking Russia off the board. Russia was the number one, or arguably the number two, geopolitical foe that we face in the United States. For $20 billion to essentially take him off the board, I think is $20 billion worth spending. And more than that, it not only took him off the board, but again, I want to be honest. I know people are talking about China and they're ramping up their war games to a potential Taiwanese invasion. There is no way, mark my words, China will not invade Taiwan because they learned the lesson from Ukraine. Trust me, this was a lesson learned. Just like it was Russia who learned the lesson that, hey, Biden was so weak, he left Afghanistan and wouldn't back Afghanistan, and therefore that's what led to the invasion. That's exactly the chain of events that happened. He learned that lesson. China has learned this lesson. Do not invade Taiwan. It will destroy their economy. It will destroy their country.
I hope you're right, and I agree with just about everything you've just said. The thing to me, though, China has got on their Politburo, the top policymaking body, 7 top guys, a guy that's written a book about America's decline, much like Putin has just said. That's why he's there. He's their chief ideologue. China has believed this message that America is so culturally weak now that maybe, it's time for China. And I wonder whether Putin bought it so much that the West was weak, it wouldn't come and help fight. If they did help, they'd soon get bored and go away. I wonder whether he's fooled himself with this story about the West's decline.
Completely. He totally bought it. That's part of his reasoning on why he could get away with attacking Ukraine, that we were so divided, so weak internally, that we were a shadow of ourselves. And look, this is the downstream effect when you have left and right at each other's throats, that the downstream effect is now people can look at you and say, well, they're too engaged in internal internecine fighting that we can now move into Ukraine and they won't bother touching us. And thank God he was wrong. But that was absolutely his calculation. There's no question about it.
We shall see how this all ends up. I tell you what, Ukraine has set the West an example that's astonished it of people that are prepared to fight and die and sacrifice a hell of a lot for freedom. And I think that's remarkable. And maybe it'll engender a little rethink in what we're doing to our own culture here in the West. That's something to be hoped for. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much indeed for your time.